Redditors with younger coworkers, what was your "I'm officially old" moment? They started calling me Mom or Mama Bear on the walkie-talkies. I find it kind of endearing, actually. Yeah, as the 40-something working with all 20-somethings, I'm auntie at work now. I don't hate it. Just don't ma'am me if you'd like to stay alive. I live in New Mexico and around here everyone says ma'am or sir all the time. 6-year-old girl to teacher on a field trip, are we there yet? Yes ma'am. It's just around the corner. 6-year-old boy on same field trip wanting to roam, can I go over there? No sir, you stay right here with the group. Works the other way too, of course. If you ask them a yes or no question, the answer will be yes ma'am or yes sir. Yeah, I grew up more in the South, but now live in a suburb of Chicago. I use sir and ma'am for everyone, regardless of age, and I feel like it's just being polite. But my goodness, I have seen some people get big mad being called ma'am when they are clearly too young and you should be calling them miss. It's just crazy to me. They were complaining how hard and awkward it is to meet women on Tinder. I asked if they ever had to call a girl at home and her dad answered the phone. They were horrified. Another time one of my guys asked what a payphone was. We worked at a phone company. A new young male coworker recently asked what app one met my husband on. I met him at a summer camp like 15 years ago. He then lamented about how hard it is to find a girl to date as he scrolled through profiles. I also once overheard a coworker talking about how he can't stand when people are 35 and trying to keep up with fashion and style. Like you're old, just get some jeans, a polo and New Balances. I was 34 so that was frightening. I just hired a babysitter, 18-year-old guy, who showed up for his first day of work in cargo shorts and New Balances. I was like, you're mocking me, aren't you? 90s fashion is back. I took my 13-year-old to the mall and going to those stores was like going shopping when I was in high school. When they say you look great for your age, like dead. I can't believe you're 30. You don't look that old. My friend, what do you think happens at 30? You magically wake up as a raisin. I look exactly like any other 30-year-old I know, you just have a weird idea of what 30 looks like. Back when I was a teenager I thought 30 was super old, too. Like the high school freshmen who look up to the seniors as adults, and then you graduate and go to college and think man those high school seniors are like kids. Then you graduate college and think the same thing about people in college. I think 30 is just the age you reach when there's officially a generational gap between you and the teen/early 20s. I'm in my early 30s and the kids graduating high school didn't grow up burning CDs or with VHS tapes, and I in turn have seen like one TikTok video. 30 also differs completely for everyone. I'm 33 and still get mistaken for being in my mid-20s. Full head of hair. I'm also chronically online and on social media while working with mostly people younger than me, so I'm at least aware of most modern trends/slangs even if it's against my will. No kids, and I still regularly go to concerts/music festivals as a hobby. Meanwhile, my former best friend from high school who I reunited with a few months back is starting to go bald, get gray hairs, about to have his third kid and works as an insurance adjuster as one of the youngest people in his office, and the most recent meme he'd probably recognize is Gangnam Style. I'm 35 and get mistaken as a teenager still sometimes, and max age people guess is 24. Average age people assume is 18 to 21. I still use slang and love pop culture. It's not that old and I'm not dead. I think half millennials are like this and we've changed the aging culture. Children also age you heavy, never had any, never will. I'm ginger, so I keep out of the sun. I have ADHD and am a bit childish/easygoing, and people guess I'm 10 years younger than I am. I got asked for ID supermarket shopping the other week, still happy about that, as I have been buying alcohol legally in that shop for over 20 years now. My younger brother looks 10 years older than he is because he started going gray at 17 and drinks a bit much, has a far more pressured job, and he never wears sunscreen. I've had people ask if he was my dad. We passed for twins when we were teenagers. This mindset exactly. I'm in my early 20s now, and it's crazy how just a few years ago 30 crazy old, like that's a full-on adult age. But I'm at an adult age now and look-wise, and just as myself, it's not like I'm going to change drastically by then. I'm in community college and it's definitely shown me that a bit more. So many people I'd pegged for being much younger who are mid-30s or 40s, turns out they got spouses, kids, going back to school or getting a second degree, and I'm thinking max 26 to 27 can't be that much older than me. My dad always used to say you'll always feel at least 10 years younger than you actually are, which from this thread alone seems to hold up pretty well. Haha, I'm actually the opposite. I had a baby face for a long time, then in my late 20s my hair got so thin that I ended up shaving it all off. I grew a beard and lost all my extra weight super fast. My friends told me I aged 7 years practically overnight. But I like it, I look way better now than I did 10 years ago. Younger dude said his first gaming console was the PlayStation 4, first computer ran Windows 8, and had no idea what we meant by dial-up or rotary phones. Had to stop and re-evaluate my age, lol. A friend and I were working at a summer camp and had to bring our Game Boys to work one day to demonstrate that yes, we had multiplayer back in the day, and yes, this was the only way to do it. I specifically to myself solely so I could get the trait evolutions on one Pokemon version. Pretty sure it was blue, but I had all 3 of them. I didn't have a lot of friends, so I used myself. Same here. You are not alone. And I have continued to do so with each Pokemon generation that has come out since. The only difference is now I have a wife that I can but the other version for. But really, I'm just buying it for myself. This comment is making me evaluate my age and I'm 26. Consoles make me feel really old. I'm your age. When we were kids, I remember PS2 being the current console and SNES games were classic games. Not ancient, we had GBA and played similar games, but definitely old. Reading about PS3 on the magazines was like reading about impossible future tech. Now that PS5 is on the market, PS3 is as far back from the current generation as SNES was when we played PS2. What felt like the future for me is a classic for current kids. My first console was a SNES and I consider the PS3 modern. I'm an IT coworker needed to borrow a serial cable. The cable was older than the coworker. That makes sense, serial went out of style in the late 90s. At least our S232 type. Still a ton of USB everywhere. Edit, since it keeps coming up, I'm aware of the various places serial keeps showing up. But the broad majority of those interfaces are designed for technicians or tinkerers, and the general populace do not use it day to day nearly as often as we did from the dawn of the PC to the late 1990s. Depends where you are. I support industrial manufacturing and see 232 everywhere. Raises hand, fluent in video production. Once I got a new computer in like 2013 for work, no serial port. How am I supposed to do my job? Oh, USB to serial adapter. Now I keep it in my desk, and if one of the young guys needs cereal I pull out this little adapter and throw it at them. I work at a brewery part-time as a beer tender, aka bartender, for extra income and free beer. I'm 45, and most of them are in their early 20s. I like all of them, but boy, did I realize quickly that I was out of touch with today's slang in the US. We were trying a new beer, and my coworker was like, "Damn, this really slaps," and that was followed by "no cap" by another. I stood there so confused about what these guys just said. They have all taught me much more since. That's bus sin. My 9-year-old complimenting the dinner I made. Got that from my 5-year-old, over hamburger helper. That's all you have to say. If someone younger than you says some slang you don't understand, say you are 6-year-old says that all the time. They will never say it again. TBF, hamburger helper is bussin'. 5 or 6 years back, my team and I went out for lunch around the holidays. Somehow, "Where were you on 9/11?" came up, and we're all going around the table sharing stories. I was in my first week of university. I thought a third world war was about to break out, and I was in exactly the right age to have to go fight it. I watched the second plane hit live on television, and by the afternoon I was making plans to join the Navy. I tell this story, and a lot of the senior people around the table's heads are nodding, then the new hire chimes in. I was in the 2nd grade. Today, most of those senior people have moved on to other things, and my team has grown to include a number of young people. Sometimes I tell them the tales of 20 years ago when I learned how to use Adobe Photoshop 7.0 that came on a thing called a CD. My graphic designers nod. They've heard those legends before, but they were pre-JK at the time. Then they show me how to do something in Photoshop the non-dinosaur way, and I nod too. I've heard the legends of these newfangled ways that make my hard jobs easy before. My SIL was born a year after 9/11. I was in 7th grade. Blew my mind she was literally not a thing yet. None of my best friend's children were born yet. Her oldest was born in 2002. She asked me about it and I realized I probably felt like my parents did when we asked about the assassinations of JFK or MLK Jr. When I knew my nipple ring was older than they were. Ha! That's a pretty good one. Many years ago we had a young employee who thought she knew everything. You know the type? 19 or 20, looks 15 or 16, pretends like they have 10 years of experience after 2 weeks on the job. Anyway, a client is paying her a compliment on how well our company is doing something, and she takes it as a personal compliment rather than something directed to the entire team. I beg your pardon? The client says, confused. Well, I basically am responsible for all of this, she said, waving her arm behind her to encapsulate everything in what is now my go-to example of someone being too big for their britches. The client looks at me. I say nothing. The client looks back at her. No offense, miss, but I have socks older than you. She no longer works for our company. She started up her own business with her father's money, and last I checked her website is riddled with spelling and grammatical mistakes. Follow your dreams, inspire others to follow theirs. That kind of thing? That hurt to read. I work with a couple of lads and they are huge gamers. Every conversation is about gaming in some way, shape or form. Occasionally they'll ask me if I've played specific games and depending on my response if the conversation continues to flow. A few days ago, they were talking about Final Fantasy VII-R and as usual asked me if I'd played the game. I said I had a couple of times and that I loved the original and consider it my all-time favorite game. They asked me when was the original released, and when I told them it was around 1997, both of the lads responded along the lines of, I wasn't even born then. I wouldn't necessarily class myself as old, but that moment certainly made me feel it. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.